Hello, everyone. My name is Lucy Hurlbut, and I am excited to be co-leading the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Inland Ocean Coalition with Rebecca Kristoff. Thank you for joining us for the first virtual meet and greet of the D.C. chapter of the Inland Ocean Coalition. We will give a brief presentation on the history of the IOC, talk about some of the D.C. chapter's goals, some campaigns we have participated in, and future events for you to look forward to. I have always been drawn to the sea. I remember the many beach vacation trips I took with my family to Lewis, Delaware, Rehoboth, and the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Going fishing on the pier and parasailing on the Sound were some of my favorite activities to do. I also loved going whale watching on the Saint Laurent in Tadoussac, Quebec, Canada, snorkeling in the Gulf of Mexico, and cruising to the beautiful islands of Bermuda. Even though I did not grow up right by the ocean, this has not stopped me from wanting to protect its health. In college, I studied abroad in Nice, France, which was right on the Côte d'Azur, or the Mediterranean Sea, so I got to have a glimpse of what it was like to live on the coast. The plastic pollution crisis is one of the issues we need to be taking action on now. Some of you may have seen the video that went viral of a sea turtle with a plastic straw up its nose. I saw this video at the beach where plastic is abundant, and then saw another image of a turtle with a Twizzler in its nose. This horrified me so much that I vowed after that that I could go without plastic straws. And to this day, I have always not used a plastic straw. The paper ones simply disintegrate, so I opt for using my own metal straws, and this has been much better for the environment. Now I'll turn it over to Becca to introduce herself and talk about the history of the IOC. Becca, over to you.
All right, thank you, Lucy. My name is Rebecca Kristoff, and I'm a co-lead on this Washington, D.C. area chapter of the Inland Ocean Coalition. And I'm incredibly excited to be taking this on as a passion project along with Lucy, because I have pretty much always been passionate about the ocean, a little bit longer than I think I really realized. My dad was military, and when I was very young, we had the opportunity to live in a few different states across the country. None of them were really that coastal. But I was always attracted to the water. I grew up swimming. My dad was a sailor and a scuba diver. I followed suit and followed in his footsteps when I was in college and sought out this opportunity to get scuba certified. And it was just ancient history after that. I loved diving, and I loved how I could interact with the water in this much more deep and meaningful way than I had the opportunity of doing so in these much more inland states. And perhaps that's why even more attracted to the mission and vision of IOC at large, and how inland voices matter, and how much of a difference we can make from inland and not just on the coast. In college, I also had the opportunity of working with a marine mammal veterinarian who is very well renowned, and we did some incredible work. It was through that work that I became particularly charged and focused on making ocean protection my mission. So I'm very glad that this project and this organization came into my life, and I'm very much looking forward to going forward with Lucy and growing this chapter. All right, so give me just 1 second here. I'm going to press forward. I wanted to also quickly describe that we decided to host this virtual meet and greet on August 6th because it is National Root Beer Float Day. And we just wanted to provide something that was a little bit more fun and engaging. We understand that there are a lot of virtual events that are multiplying every day, it feels, and it's kind of hard to sift through which ones are going to be more or not as much worth our time. So we want to try and continue and strive to make it a mission to always have a few fun and engaging things like this for you in the future. But let's go ahead and dive in, if you will, into the whole history of all this. What is the Inland Ocean Coalition, or IOC? Well, IOC is a project of the Ocean Foundation. And before the IOC was officially the IOC, it started as the Colorado Ocean Coalition back in 2011. It was founded by Vicki Goldstein. And since then, it took a few years, but and there were some other inland chapters who were really attracted to this mission that started forming. And a few years after that, in 2017, the original Colorado Ocean Coalition responded to this very rapidly growing network of chapters and formed the Inland Ocean Coalition. The Inland Ocean Coalition at large, as well as its subchapters, are guided by a few principles. I'm just going to list the two, the mission and vision. The mission of the IOC is to foster an inland movement that works to build land-to-sea stewardship. And we seek to do that by supporting citizens and communities locally to take an active role in improving the impacts between their watersheds and their oceans. There are a few IOC-specific campaigns that I would like to highlight here. The three that I'm focusing on are just 3 out of the 4 or 5 that IOC is partaking in. The one that I do not have listed that Lucy will actually describe a little bit more later in the presentation is the Break Free from Plastic. So keep your eye out for that. But the 3 campaigns that I would like to start with, or one of the campaigns of the 3 that I would like to start with rather, is the Reef Safe Sunscreen Pledge. The pledge is an educational tool to decrease the use of harmful chemical sunscreens worldwide. Not sure if any of you knew this, but each year 28 million pounds of sunscreen wind up in waters that are home to coral reefs. And only 1 drop of oxybenzone is toxic enough to contaminate 6.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Pretty crazy. Oxybenzone is a chemical that is within a lot of sunscreens, and it's just one of a few that are incredibly toxic to coral reefs. So it's just a little amazing to see how far the impact of just a drop can be. So we're making this a little bit of a priority for us in the Washington, D.C. chapter, and I believe other chapters as well, because a lot of us are using much more sunscreen this time of year. So it is a summer campaign, if you will, but definitely something that we will be pushing throughout the year. The other campaign I'd like to highlight is the Suck the Straws Out campaign. It is also another educational campaign to decrease the use of plastic straws. This has been a hot topic for a while, so I'm sure none of you are surprised that this is a campaign that we have been a part of. But we seek to encourage bars, restaurants, businesses, and other establishments to only serve straws upon request. And if a customer were to, or a guest were to request a straw, we encourage these businesses and bars and restaurants to offer eco-friendly or reusable alternative in these cases. One fact that I found kind of interesting about plastic straws was that in the United States alone, we use 500 million straws, disposable single-use straws every single day, which is enough to encircle the entire Earth 2.5 times. So this is another very incredibly important campaign. Another campaign that is near and dear to my heart as a scuba diver and something that I'm very interested in is the Blue the Dive campaign. This is a collaborative initiative spearheaded by the Colorado Ocean Coalition, the Colorado Scuba Retailers Association, and the Ocean First Institute to engage and support the dive industry to protect the ocean through education, action, and sustainable business practices. So this definitely is something that individual divers, as they educate themselves, can practice, but the Blue the Dive campaign and initiative is something we would love to see scuba shops to take on as businesses. So from there, here's a list of our 16 chapters, and I will toss it off to Lucy to explain the chapters, our chapter, and some of the goals that we have. Lucy?
Thanks, Becca. Since 2017, the IOC has launched 16 chapters across the United States, which are shown here. Despite not being right by the water, our actions also affect the ocean. As Becca mentioned, we would like to emphasize that inland voices do matter for the future of our planet and ocean. IOC's mission is to build land-to-sea stewardship through programs and activities focused on advocacy, education, policy, community engagement, and youth development. Now that we have talked a little about the history of the IOC and the chapters that exist, let's focus on the DC chapter's goals as the newest member of the IOC family. Becca and I decided to form the DC chapter while going through the Inland Ocean Coalition's Ambassador Certification Training. This program covered critical issues, including plastic pollution, marine protected areas, fisheries management, and sustainable seafood, and the power of storytelling. We had felt a strong connection to the ocean and were ready to take action to protect it as an inland state. This led us to develop a chapter in the Chesapeake Bay watershed area. While the official name of the chapter is Washington, D.C., we are including D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Now, the D.C. chapter has two main goals at this time that align with the IOC's mission. The first is focused on the health and protection of the Chesapeake watershed. The Chesapeake Bay was formed about 10,000 years ago from the melting of glaciers which flooded the Susquehanna River Valley. It is the largest of more than 100 estuaries in the United States and third largest in the world. The bay is home to more than 3,600 species of plants and animals, including 348 species of finfish, 173 species of shellfish, over 2,700 plant species, and more than 16 species of underwater grasses. Some of the major rivers that empty into the bay include the James, York, Potomac, Patapsco, Nanticoke, and Chester. We plan to build partnerships within our community that already exist to protect the Chesapeake watershed. This watershed is inclusive of the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia areas, just like our chapter. The watershed is an interspace between inland states and the ocean and therefore very important to protect. It spans approximately 524 miles and comprises of sections from 6 states, including Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, New York, and Pennsylvania, as well as the entire District of Columbia. Our second goal is to increase awareness about the plastic pollution crisis through advocacy and education. Single-use plastics are the most concerning because they are only meant to be used once, but stay in our environment for up to 1,000 years, and in some cases, they never decompose. Microplastics are also important because they are found in our food and water and are very harmful to fish and birds who ingest them, mistaking them for food. Some of you know that last month was Plastic Free July month, which was a global movement to reduce plastic pollution. Plastic Free July was a key initiative of the Plastic Free Foundation that allows us to work towards our vision of seeing a world free of plastic waste. Started in 2011, the award-winning Plastic Free July campaign is the result of years of hard work. Our organization was one of the 326 million people worldwide who participated this past month. We actively participated in this by contacting our representatives and congressmen and women for the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act of 2020. This bill was introduced by California Representative Alan S. Lowenthal in February of this year. This bill will reduce waste across our country by phasing out certain plastic products, including plastic cutlery, by January 2022. Placing additional responsibility on manufacturers for waste management, and pausing unnecessary new plastic production. Our chapter will continue to support this bill to get it passed before the end of the year. We know this will be a challenge, but we should not be asking ourselves if this bill will pass, but rather how it will get passed. It is clear that momentum is building from both coastal and inland communities, so we can make this happen. As we know, these are unprecedented times, but we are all making it through together. And we do have some virtual events that we wanted to share with you during this time. One of the events is the IOC's Ocean Climate Conversations, which is a webinar series co-organized with the Healthy Oceans Coalition. The webinars will dive into issues at the intersection of climate change, the ocean, and society. A second type of event is podcast parties. Rather than having a book club, which could also be considered down the road, we thought discussing podcasts could be just as engaging. There are so many ocean podcasts out there, from the Speak Up for the Ocean Blue, NOAA Ocean Podcast Series, and the Marine Mammal Science Podcast. A third type of event is remote cleanups. Just because we cannot go and pick up trash in large groups does not mean we cannot do it individually or with those who we are quarantining with. You're bound to find plenty of things on the ground, including all the masks, gloves, and other medical supplies made from plastic. Now, I will hand it over to Becca to talk about some possible events to come in the future. Becca, over to you.
All right, thank you, Lucy. So some additional events that we have planned for down the road that aren't as concrete as the ones that Lucy just mentioned are a few, and I will start with the viewing parties. So this is something that's pretty accessible now, especially once everyone started quarantining and going into isolation. A lot of individual platforms have made it available to do these watch parties, and we would love to host one of these for all of you. One of the documentaries that we were particularly interested in is Story of Plastics, because it's aligning with that second goal that we had laid out for you earlier in our presentation. However, we're very much open to feedback and comments on whether or not you have a preference, if there's something else that you're particularly interested in that you want to see or want to suggest, we're open to that, certainly. Another event are some trivia nights. As I mentioned very early on, we want to provide fun and engaging ways for you to educate yourself about the ocean, and we figured trivia nights would be one of the perfect opportunities to do that. And Facebook Live and Instagram Live are platforms that would allow us to do that, so keep an eye out for those in the future. We're also going to be doing virtual happy hours, which is something that the IOC at large titles Blue Drinks. So that will probably be the title of the event once you see it start circulating around Facebook. And we're going to be bringing in some guest speakers. The Washington D.C. chapter, we want to try and bring in local speakers, whether they're artists, scientists, or specialists in a particular field that's interesting to our goals. But we also are looking to bring in some wider known, some wider network individuals. So also please keep that in mind for the future. One ambitious thing that we would like to take on that we want to provide for all of you is sort of a art contest that we would like to host on Instagram primarily. It is right now, the title of the contest is being placeholdered as SDG 14. That's going to stand for Sustainable Development Goal 14. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals is something that was laid out by the UN, United Nations. There are actually 17 of them. The 14th Sustainable Development Goal is the one that focuses on ocean health. So we really want to grab that, spearhead that, and encourage people to depict what they would like the health of the Chesapeake Bay region to look like in the next 10 years. And this was something that we were inspired by the UN's Draw Your Decade. The Draw Your Decade effort was very similar. They encouraged people to draw what they felt they wanted the oceans to look like in 10 years. And it's encouraging ocean optimism, and it's encouraging creativity, and it's a great opportunity for us to sort of echo that onto our more local group of ocean passionate people. And it's going to be an all ages welcome event. So we're going to have we foresee having to subdivide it into different categories, different age groups, and we will most likely be having prizes awarded to different contestants within each category. So please keep an eye out for that.
Thanks, Becca, for sharing those additional events. Even though we are socially distanced, we can still come together as a community to tackle some of the persistent issues facing the ocean, our planet, and ecosystem. Want to stay updated with news and events about the DC chapter of IOC? We'd love to hear from you about issues that matter to you and any other questions that you may have about our chapter. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and feel free to contact us with any questions. And this is the information here, and we will also be sharing this as well in a follow-up email that will include the slides as a PDF version and our email addresses along with all the links. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us. We're very excited to kick off this chapter. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And remember to check out the IOC's campaigns on Suck the Straws Out, Blue the Dye, and Reef Safe Sunscreen. And with that, thank you so much. And I hope everyone continues to stay safe and well. Have a good day. Bye.
As Lucy said, we want to thank you all so much for having attended our event and for being here and educating yourselves about who we are and maybe being a little bit more interested in what's going on in the local watershed region and ocean environment. We look forward to seeing you more in other future events, and please keep us in mind for social media, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.